What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Pro and Bro Wrestling Podcast. We are your host. I'm Arnold Telega Arda.
And I'm Mr. No Days Off, Fred Rosser, and this is episode 60 of Pro and Bro Wrestling, another episode of Sitting Under the Learning Tree. I think it was episode 39 when we had our good friend Drew Chimnick on, who's got experience in WWE production. But this time we're going to have to go into the writer's room and, just get the 411 and share stories. And I always say, don't die with a story and you tell it. In this episode, he's got his own podcast. We watch wrestling podcasts. He's been in commercials, most recently Progressive, I believe. And he's none other than Matt McCarthy, former writer with WWE, still making moves. Thank you, Matt, for joining us on Pro and Bro Wrestling. I always say, don't die with a story and you tell it.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Matt, you wear a lot of hats, man. I feel like you do it all. Comedian, writer, podcaster. I want to know a little bit of your background, man. Like, what was your childhood like? And were you always into comedy and wrestling growing up?
Yeah. Those were the two things. Shit. The earliest memory I have is being in, I would have been too old to have been in a crib. So it must have been a bed with guards on the side. Like I remember standing in, waking up in the room I shared with my older brother and him being like, Matt, look, wrestling's on, because we had a TV set for a ColecoVision. And I remember it was this was so long ago. It would have been we grew up in New England, so it was Championship Wrestling, but it was the Bob Backlund Open.
Wow.
Coach, baby, my coach.
Right.
Started now.
Well, shit. Yeah. I mean, that's part of my story too. Those vignettes. That's when I got, because I was on the creative team from 2011 to 2012, and then I came back as a consultant in LA. Like I didn't go to TV and stuff from 2016 to 2018. So I wrote those.
Wow. So the whole, you wrote Fred's segment with the whole make Darren Young great again? That was you?
That was, I mean, this goes to show that it's like Vince is always open to, like Michael Hayes always loves to say, it's like, boss likes options. So this was an idea that Fred had. Yeah. And then I think Ed Koski called me on the phone and explained it to me, and he's like, write up something. So I wrote up like a long thing, and they kind of got cut up into smaller ones. And like, it was I just threw in the line as a joke. I kind of figured it was going to get cut, was like, make Darren Young great again. Yeah. And then that wound up being what the vignettes were called.
Yeah.
So I was like, so that made me doubly happy. I was like, oh, good. They liked it enough that they named it that. But yeah.
What did you think when you first heard the pitch about the whole Bob Backlund being Darren Young's life coach? Did you get it right away? Did you get the vision right away? And you were like, cool, I got it.
No, I couldn't have. I thought it was such an odd pairing. That I was like, really? But which made me love it, because I was like, I never would have thought, those two together.
Yeah.
But I think it worked, because Bob's he's a nut. Like he's just the best. I was excited to write something for Bob Backlund just in general, because I was like, this is. I didn't understand the pairing, but once I thought about it for a couple seconds, I was like, oh, this is going to be good, because it is an odd, strange bedfellows type of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Matt, let me kind of dig into that, because how it came about. Years ago, I did signings with Bob Backlund, and I like to do my signings standing up. I like to engage with the fans, and he likes to do the same thing as well. So as I was watching him, I said to myself, tag teams don't last forever. And once I'm done teaming with Titus, I like to have Bob Backlund as somewhat of a manager. There's not many managers in wrestling, maybe a life coach. So once it was all said and done with Titus and I, the one thing I learned from Titus is the most intimidating thing about Vince McMahon is his office door. Once you get through his office door and have a game plan, then, you know, the sky's the limit. So, you know, that's something I learned from Titus. So when I proposed it to Vince McMahon, I had it all written out. I had visuals, and I actually kind of took the idea from Mike Tyson and his trainer Cuss. You know, Mike was just like tunnel vision with, you know, his former trainer Cuss, and they were like strange bedfellows. Like, you didn't know why, you know, Mike Tyson was just so tunnel vision with Cuss, and that's how I kind of saw myself with Bob Backlund. And Vince and I, for 20 minutes, when I walked in the office, we talked about yoga. He was asking me, like, man, how do you get such a big barrel chest? And I said, Vince, yoga, you know? He's like, really? Yoga? And I talked to him. I said, it fixes your posture so you're not slumped over, and squeezes your rear deltoids back. And I was just talking a bunch of BS, but I was like looking him right in the eye. Like, I had a game plan. This is what I wanted to do. And he called up Bob Backlund, and Bob was down with doing the storyline, and, you know, the rest was history. I've done plenty of interviews. And I talk about Vince. I say, I'll never have a bad thing to say about Vince McMahon, because he gave me an opportunity. He's been kind to me many times. One time when I was, you know, me and Titus were baby faces, and after a match, I was like, I came to the gorilla position, and Vince was like this, come here. He's like, Darren, you're such a handsome young man. Let the people in, smile. You get a W, and you're like, "Urgh, urgh." So that's what I learned from Vince. Great stories about him, but that's how the storyline came about, and then you guys took off with it.
Yeah, the other interesting thing was, I don't know, I feel like it might have, if it was Vince's idea, it was not my idea to have you both, you know, like picture in picture next to each other. I don't know where, that might have been a Vince idea, which made it very unique, because it wasn't clear how you were talking to each other. It wasn't like, are they FaceTiming? They're not in the same place. It just was this, you know, kind of nebulous television world where you're both talking to the camera, but to each other. So it added to that. I don't know. There was like a surreal element to it that I enjoyed.
I think it was foreshadowing 2020, right? How everyone's doing Zoom. I think Fred and Bob Backlund was just
ahead of its time. Yeah,
absolutely,
right?
man, absolutely.
Yeah.
They saw the future, and they know where it was going. We were just not there with them, you know.
I know, it's crazy. It's one of those things where, looking back now, it makes more sense. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, you talked about, you know, watching wrestling from an early age. I did too. You know, I'm a lifelong wrestling fan. Growing up, who were some of your favorite wrestlers?
Oh God, I mean, you know, Hulk and Snuka and Piper and the Road Warriors. I loved, you know, that's when I was really small, and
Yeah.
then I mean, I was just a complete Hulkamaniac, and you know, I loved Mr. Fuji, even though I wasn't supposed to. Like, he was the worst. He was such a bad guy, but I was like, you know, I remember watching the late, like being up late and watching the Halloween episode of Saturday Night's Main Event.
Okay.
And it, like, anything Halloween I just love, but then it was, you know, there's going to be, what do they call it, like a kung fu challenge between Ricky Steamboat and Mr. Fuji, and I was just like, this is the craziest thing I've ever heard of, because it was also like just the early mid 80s, and it was like we all loved ninjas for some reason.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, right?
Yeah. So I was just like really excited about that, I remember. But yeah, I mean, then gosh, I think I just became so enamored with Hulk.
Right.
But I remember at the time, my absolute favorite like I couldn't believe it. And it was like my favorite feud was when Jake Roberts and Rick Rude got into it over Jake Roberts' wife being front row, and Rick Rude was trying to seduce her, and then he had the tights. He had the tights with her face on it.
Yes.
And I'll never forget the weekend that, you know, Jake Roberts was like, "You wear those tights, you're gonna lose them." And Rick Rude, like, he had a match against, you know, just an enhancement guy, and then he pulls off the tights he was wearing to reveal he had the Cheryl tights on underneath the whole time. And the snake hit the ring and ripped the tights off of him. And there was like a big censored, like, over, you know, over his, you know, undercarriage. And I was like, this is the craziest thing I'd ever seen. I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. But you know, that and seeing, I must have, somebody must have rented a copy of the Best of WWF Volume 1, the Coliseum Home Video, which I have it over there actually somewhere, right there, where they Mean Gene got trained by Hulk Hogan.
I remember that.
to be in the tag match against George Steele and Mr. Fuji.
Yeah.
That wasn't my earliest memory watching wrestling, but it was like my most vivid, to the point where I saw it when I was so young that, and obviously this is, you know, before the internet and all that stuff, that years later, when I finally saw it again, I was so excited and relieved that I hadn't imagined it. You know what I mean? Like, it was like I was so young that I was like, God, did that really happen? Like, has that, my memory changed over the years? But it was like beat for beat everything that I remembered. Like, them, like him showing up, Mean Gene smoking a cigar in his kitchen and making him, you know, drink the raw eggs. And, them running and Okerlund stopping at a like, you know, at a hot dog stand to buy like a bratwurst and a beer. And I just, you know, oh God, I loved it. Love that.
I love that era so much, man, because I feel like a lot of people really gravitated to the Hulk Hogan era, or, you know, what they call the golden era. And it's so interesting because it's so very comic book like, very imaginary heroes come to life. But at the same time, at our age, you know, it felt so real. You know, you believe in them as superheroes, and you were so invested in them, and it was just a really cool time.
You know what I still have is I remember my brother cut it out of the Providence Journal for me, and I still have it hanging up, is the article from the sports page Monday morning after the first WrestleMania. So you got Mr. T with Piper up in the you know, fireman's carry. Yeah, it was just a part of my life immediately, you know.
Wow, that's the coolest office, man. I would love to.
Oh, thank you.
Do a room for one of these days, man.
I got all my wrestling tapes over there, and some 8x10s on the wall and stuff. This is my favorite, is my Piper and Roddy fighting each other. Yeah, totally.
You have a lot of figures in there, man. That's a lot of gems in that room.
I'm not fooling around. I got.
No, you're not. Absolutely not.
I'm living in a. This is, you know, if the internet ever goes down, it won't affect me. I got plenty to do, to read and to watch in here, for sure.
You know, I miss those days where on the weekends I would go with my parents to Blockbuster, and I would go to the wrestling section, and I would rent one of those like Coliseum videos. And you know, you wouldn't think as a kid that something like Blockbuster would run out of business, right? You would think something like that will last forever. Now, when you talk to kids these days and you say "Be kind, rewind," they don't know what you're talking about, right?
I know, it's crazy. My son is he'll be 5 at the beginning of November, and he'll never. It dawned on me very quickly. I was like, he'll never know the feeling of there being nothing on.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Very true.
I love, I mean, like I'm surrounded by videotapes and I got a whole case of them and DVDs and stuff. So I love just the physical media and the look of it and the artwork and
Yes.
stuff. But I also, just going to the video store, part of what I miss is the thing you wanted to rent being out, and then you had to find something else.
Yeah.
You know, there's too much, I don't know. There's something lost in, oh, I can just watch the thing I wanted to watch right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it almost makes those things less special.
Sure.
And it also, I miss out on things I would have never thought of, you know, because
Sure.
when I'm like scrolling through Netflix or whatever, it's just like everything kind of runs together. And the idea that it's there forever, you know, I'm like, oh, I'll get to it.
Yeah.
You know, the amount of things that I'm like, I'll get to it.
Exactly.
As opposed to looking and seeing, like holding, like I'm surrounded by tapes, like holding it in your hand, being like, what is this?
Yeah.
Or even, God forbid, asking the kid who works there, like, well, I wanted to rent this movie, and he's like, oh, you know, you would like, or like, you know, you're like, oh, I love this, what else do I get?
Right.
I miss that experience, you know.
Yeah. I mean, as a kid watching wrestling, did you know that that's something you want to be involved with growing up? Did you know that well, I had to get into wrestling somehow? And I know you're also a comedian as well. So like when did it all like happen? Like, did you have to decide, oh, comedian or wrestling, or did you always know you wanted to do both?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I always wanted to be a comedian. I always wanted to do comedy. I didn't, you know, especially when, God, before it was even Comedy Central,
Mm-hmm.
when it was just called the Comedy Channel. I loved the stand-ups, but I was also I was always more drawn to like the comedic actors, like John Belushi and John Candy, or you know, even, you know, especially getting to watch Saturday Night Live reruns.
Please say Chris Farley. Please say Chris Farley.
Oh, forget it. Of course, Farley.
My
Yeah.
all-time favorite. I was devastated as a kid when he passed away. Devastated.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. And it felt like it was like right on top of each other, him and Phil Hartman.
Mm.
I think my all-time favorite on SNL is Jan Hooks, though. She was so good. It's like you didn't realize it, you know, until like looking back, I was like, she was flawless. Like she could do anything. God, absolutely love her. But it was when I got, because I started getting into more comedy writing things on TV, you know, I would do some acting stuff here and there, do some TV spots with stand up here and there, and a couple small, you know, contributing ideas here and there with small shows, or doing an appearance and writing my own material type of thing. That when the opportunity came up, and I think at the time they were specifically looking for a comedy writer, like a TV comedy writer, that I see, my advice to people is always be honest about what you like, because then when everybody you know or kind of know starts getting like, oh, WWE is looking for comedy writers, they're like, oh, well, McCarthy's the guy, you know. And that's what happened. I got the first email from somebody. They were like, oh, you should talk to this guy from WWE. And then I must have gotten that message like maybe 5 or 6 more times that week from different TV writers. And when I got the job, so to answer your question, it was a dream job that I never knew that I had, or never knew that was even an option, you know? Because I mean, like, I would watch wrestling as a kid, and then I would like wrestle the couch cushions in my basement and jump off the back of the couch and stuff. But I was like, I don't know if because I was I was somewhat athletic. I was on the swim team and stuff, but I was just like, I don't know if I never enjoyed being tired. So I was never that interested in, I was like, if I can just be funny, like that's not exhausting at all.
Could you see yourself being a manager at the time? You're like, maybe I could be the next.
Well, that was always in the back of my mind. Like, oh, that would be kind of cool though. But it's, you see, I'm like, I don't know. Every once in a while, Bobby Heenan does get laid out, or
Jim Cornette gets hit with his own tennis racket once in a while too.
Yeah, exactly. So there was, and then when I was there was always like, I think if I had been there long enough, we would have pulled the trigger on it, but we always kind of joked. And that's, a lot of ideas would get pitched because once we were fixating on it a long enough amount of time, we were like, why don't we just do it? Why don't we just throw it to Vince and see if he'd be interested in it? But there was always a running joke that I was going to be Sheamus's like loser cousin named Lamus, who was always, getting into gambling debts or, getting drunk and running my mouth and getting him into trouble. And he'd have to come in and, Lamus would show up like, oh, Jesus, Lamus is here,
You kind of do look like him though.
Yeah. I mean,
and I'm not just talking about like the beard and everything, like your face actually kind of looks like him.
We could, I mean, we could have done I always pictured us coming down like the escalator, like in Twins, wearing like, the suits.
Like Arnold Schwarzenegger and what's his name?
Danny.
Yeah, Danny. Yeah. That's great.
Were you cool with the one writer? I got to keep it PG. Big Dick Johnson.
Yeah, he had left right before I had gotten there, but I wound up meeting him. I think when we were out here, we were in LA. Gosh, what show would it have been? But at any rate, he was already doing Lucha Underground by that point. And then, like we've spoken here and there.
Arnold, do you remember him?
Absolutely. That's why I was so surprised, because I had no idea that he was a writer, and I wonder if that was his idea to do that character.
I don't know the full story. I would assume it was something he would do, at hotels or something. And then finally it got to the point where it's like, we got to just put this on TV.
Yeah, he's like, what gimmick?
Yeah. Especially those days. It was a lot. I got there right. Like we were really doing the PG thing, but but that's so funny.
What was your first experience, man, working with WWE as the creative team? Was it everything that you expected, or were you like, wow, this is overwhelming? Or did it kind of like shatter that boyhood charm because now you know how everyone is backstage? How was that experience like for you?
Right. No, I mean, most of when I started there had just been like a mass like firing. So it was a very small team and they were starting to rebuild. And so the core group of guys that were there when I started are basically all still there.
Wow.
And they will, I was just texting with Dave Kapoor the other day, Ranjan Singh, because he saw the progressive spot. And we're just like, how you doing? You staying safe? How's everything? And but they will always point out to me that I'm the only ex-writer who's still a huge wrestling fan.
That's good.
Like a lot of people get burned out on it or they get turned on it. It only made me a bigger fan because everything made sense. It finally, the last piece of the puzzle that was missing for all those years was finally in place again, because it was like every storyline that got dropped or every guy that was getting a push and then all of a sudden didn't, and then every joke that didn't land, every every like reference I was confused, anything that confused me or didn't make sense or just I was like, what is going on here? Everything finally made sense because I got to meet Vince and see the way that the place operated behind the curtain, and be like, oh, this is what happens. This is how it goes. Like, yeah, this is and it just gave me a fuller, richer viewing experience, truly.
Matt, your story is a lot different than our last guest that we had on episode 39 with Drew Chimnick. I would see him walking around, and him and I are very close. I'd see him walking around backstage sweating. I'm like, Drew, calm down. And he's rushing, and like anxiety's kicking in. So 2 completely different stories. But yeah, continue.
Oh no, I definitely I was stressed out during that job. I mean, I put it this way: before I started, Dave Lagana's podcast was still up, with whatever it was called, formerly Creative or something, where he would talk to ex-writers and talk a lot about what that experience was like. So I had a glimpse into how difficult a job it is, and it is a very difficult job. It is not a TV writing job. There is, TV writers go into a room, pitch ideas, they get assignments, they type it up, they go home. This is much more of your, producing the segments. You're dealing with Vince is a job unto itself. And it's volatile, and it's you're in it, and there's no reruns, there's no off season. You're in a different city every week. It's a grind. And
yes.
So there were definitely times. There was one time I was just like, one of the jokes was always like, oh, Matt McCarthy, your face is always so red. That's what Ryan Ward and Dave Kapoor would always say to me, like, why is your face so red? There was one time I was in the writer's room, and it was at the end of TV, and Seamus actually came in. And he goes, he's like, you know what you look like? He's like, and he stops himself. He's like, I don't want to insult you. And then, of course, me included, the whole room were like, no, please insult me. Tell me what I look like. He goes, well, do you remember when Kane unmasked for the first time?
Oh my God. That's terrible, man. That is terrible. That is terrible.
No, yeah. Dean Malenko used to ask me all the time. He's like, why are you always so disheveled?
People always say that Dean Malenko is really a funny guy behind the scenes. Is that true?
Yes,
in the production meetings, like the way that the tables are set, it's like the more senior the writer you are, the closer to the front of the room, the closer to Vince you get. And so I was in like the last row of the writers, which means I was always kind of either next to Arn Anderson or Dean, or in front of Arn Anderson or Dean. And it was like hearing those two make comments throughout the production meeting was like, it was everything I could do not to burst out laughing. And like, it was like, you don't want to laugh when you're in school, because then the teacher's like, what's so funny? Now imagine the teacher's Vince McMahon. You're like, why don't you share with the room, pal? What's so funny? You're the goddamn comedy writer. Make me laugh. But yeah, oh my God, Dean's like, it's one of those things. It's like how he was never able to bottle that and put it on camera is incredible. And it's a shame, because he's just really just such a dry, quick wit. Arn too, for that matter. I mean, Arn was obviously able to tap into the personality that we saw, the enforcer and all that. But like Dean was he seemed like he was just kind of, just a nothing, when he was actually very, very funny. God, so funny. And like almost a little like, you're like, damn, you should do like roast battle or something. Like he could just like light somebody up.
I believe that with Arn, because I remember I was listening to Eric Bischoff's 83 Weeks podcast, and I think Conrad Thompson asked him, Out of all my co-hosts, out of all my podcast shows, who do you think is the funniest? Bruce, you, Tony Schiavone, or Arn? And he's like, Arn, definitely Arn. But you really have to get to know him for him to open up. And, it's dry humor. But when he's comfortable with you, he's one of the funniest people out there.
Oh, yeah. When I heard that his podcast was starting, I was like, yeah, but is it going to be uncensored? Because I mean, that was what I was, I was like, I don't want this guy to like hold back.
Yeah.
Because he's like the dad in A Christmas Story. He could weave a tapestry of obscenities, like nobody's business.
Oh, trust me, I've seen it at the airport. It's one of my favorite moments. Plenty of times when stuff's not going right, delays, bags not getting on the flight. He goes off on.
Out of all the storylines that you're a part of in WWE as a creative team, which one are you the most proud of?
I mean,
also, which one was the worst?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, I did. Again, I don't know if you know this. I came up with the name, the Primetime Players.
Wow, didn't know that.
Yeah, I feel like
that.
Yeah. And so I think I was the first time you guys pitched the Millions of Dollars dance to Vince at TV. I was with you on whatever the segment was. Because I can't even think of what city we would have been in. But I remember it was like Vince was alone in his office, and I was like, hey, boss, you got a minute? You guys came in and did the thing. And he's like, love it. Great.
Oh my goodness. That's a blur to me, bro. I'm sorry. That's just a blur. I just don't remember. I always say that, like, a lot of my memories in WWE, I remember some, but a lot of it's a blur. I mean, I don't drink anymore. I haven't drunk since August 2017, but like a lot of that stuff is a blur. So I apologize.
Oh no, I'm with you, man. I believe me. Yeah, no, because I was with you guys a little more when AW was still with the company and was your manager, and we kept. God. Yeah, and I don't know what the segment was, but it kept getting cut, and poor Abraham Washington just kept getting hotter and hotter each week. When I'd come and be like, no, it's cut again, like whatever. I don't know. I don't even know what it was. It was a backstage or was it something? But it was it was going to be a talking thing, obviously, if I was involved. But it was just, it kept getting pushed to the point where it was almost like a joke where I was like, oh God, I got to go tell these guys this thing is cut again, But
how's my reaction? Like, do you remember how I was? Because I always ask people like how I was as a person, because I try to be kind to everyone,
You were totally chill. You were almost like, it was almost like you weren't there. You were just like, I remember AW being steamed, but like, no, every time we ever had an interaction, it was just, you just were always just quiet and kind of nodded like, all right. Like totally. The segment, the things I'm proudest of, I guess the two things were, I wrote and it went through a lot of changes, but I wrote the Daniel Bryan Kane anger management thing, and that got very changed.
Everyone.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I wrote that stayed like word for word, and which is hard to do, like, because it, especially in the position I was in, like I would give it to Brian Gewirtz, and then he would put his polish on it, and then it would go to, through the producers, and they would have notes, and then the production meeting, and through Vince. And then, sometimes with talent, they'll want to change things. Those two in particular, Kane it was the easiest guy to work with. You would give something to him, and he would just be like, okay. And he would go off for 20 minutes, memorize it, come back, and then kill it. I don't think he gets enough credit for, again, kind of he was so good, you took it for granted.
Sure.
You know, as a viewer.
Sure.
But the Kane's monologue of his history, that I worked on really hard. Like I took a full week, you know, between TVs, writing that. Actually, I might have been I might have been back on the home team actually when I wrote that. And I went through every significant moment in Kane's career that I could find. I like combed the internet because I was like, I kind of remember Undertaker at one point cutting a promo saying that he was in fact the one who burned down the funeral home to kill their parents and kill Kane because he was weak. And I actually found it because everybody was like, I don't know. I don't remember that. I don't know. And this was also even before the network.
Right.
You know, so I was like, fuck, do I like ask for DVDs? Do I, you know, from the studio? And then I finally found the promo somewhere on YouTube, thank God. And they were like, oh, you should go to the magazines. They have some books. There was a couple, I wish I could credit who wrote them. There was a couple of novelizations of like wrestlers' backstories, and one of them was like a novelization of the story of Kane. Wow. So I actually thumbed through that for a little bit to get some shape to it. But yeah, that very proud of even just the fact that it, you know, I was getting texts from, you know, they're up in the Vince meeting waiting for Vince, you know, in Stamford, and getting texts from guys being like, dude, we just read through it ourselves and it killed. Like we are dying.
That's amazing.
Yeah. My other proudest moment was during my second run there. I think it was Miz's idea to do a parody of Total Bellas, and so yeah, so I wrote that, and it was I again, like everything that was in stayed the same from when I wrote it, except maybe the only thing that got touched up was the promo that Miz cuts in the very last one, where he pulls off the gimmick and he just like cuts a monster heel promo.
I'm chuckling because I just remember the house rules that the Miz would do.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. That might have been that. I'm trying to remember, because him and I talked once or twice about the idea. And then, you know, I went and wrote it, and then again, you know, it went through all the places that it goes through before it, you know, gets shot and approved. But the only other thing I had that was cut from that, which I was sad, but I understood, was I had it written in that John Laurinaitis was in the parodies, and he was just, you know, kind of in the pool and like drinking beers. I never really watched Total Bellas, but they were like, oh, you know, Laurinaitis will show up once in a while. And he's always just kind of like has a cocktail, and he's just like, hey Daniel, what are you doing? You know? And so I wrote it that it was actually John Laurinaitis. And then like he just didn't realize he wasn't on Total Bellas. Like he, you know, like like the big reveal where Miz pulls off the Cena stuff, and starts right before he cuts the promo. Laurinaitis was going to be like, "Hey, wait a second, you're not John."
That's gold.
Like he had no idea the whole time, but I guess that got killed. I don't know by who. You know, I mean, I guess Vince, but yeah. But everything else stayed, and I loved those. Maurice is so funny.
You know, I know. I remember the fans' reactions were like, "Oh my God!" Like Maurice as Nikki Bella is better than Nikki Bella as Nikki Bella. Like she is so entertaining. And for me, I do watch Total Bellas, and I gave like Ms. and Mrs. a shot, and I like that as well because I liked it because of Maurice. Like Maurice is just such a funny person, and she's more likable on Ms. and Mrs. You're kind of like, I know their lifestyle is so extravagant, but like her personality is just so like relatable. Like she just seems easygoing.
Yeah, when on my second run, they were one of the people I was kind of paired up with a little bit. I mean, I mostly wrote. I At first it was vignettes. Like I would write the Bob and Darren stuff. I would write. The first thing was the Gold Dust and Our Truth. Those backstages.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And that Nick Manfredini also had a big part in those as well. And then towards the end of my run, I was contributing elements to the Fashion Police, and particularly like when they did the Twin Peaks thing. Like my favorite part was I would come up with the gags on the bulletin board behind them. Like blue velvet McIntyre, or like a picture of Kane that says "Fire Walk with Me."
Sorry to interrupt, but I just have to know. One of the things that Tyler Breeze said that was really hilarious was when they were talking about the Usos, and they said one day, what did he say? One day is H. Yeah, did you have anything to do with that? Because that was just gold.
No, it was Steve Guerreri, and I wish I could think of who else wrote on those. Steve was one of the guys that was there when I started, maybe a month or two or a couple before Steve, and then he was the lead writer of SmackDown for a while, and then he left WWE maybe last year or the year before. I honestly couldn't put a date on it, but it would have been Steve or somebody else. I can't think of who else wrote on those. I'm sorry if he's listening. but no, but that would have been with the Twin Peaks ones, or with the Fashion Police ones. I was much more of a I would kind of take a pass, try to add in some jokes and stuff. But yeah, what was the other thing? When Maurice first came back, they were like, I got to write the backstage of well, who is she going to be? And I was like, well, let's try she should be like the, if Miz is the A-lister, and so she should be the manager who's, making outrageous demands and everything's wrong. Where's the this bottled water isn't it's flat, it needs to be Perrier, why is it room temperature, this needs to be this specific temperature, where's the bowl of yellow M&Ms, that type of thing. And again, it was one of those things where it's like you almost forgot how good she was, because she's great as the walking out with the thing, and she was just always she's just got such a great I don't know, she's just got such a charisma to her.
Yeah, very true.
Absolutely.
Very true, man. Now that you're watching the product in 2020, how do you feel about certain storylines they got going on right now as a fan? Do you ever sit back and think if I was just there, I would have done this differently, maybe add something to Retribution or Roman Reigns storyline? Is there anything that pops into your mind right now that stands out? You're like, they should have done it this way.
I mean, of course, that's constantly, on my mind. Specifically, I mean, I was excited to see Heyman and Roman together, although I was just excited to see something happen with it was a move I was not expecting, put it that way.
Sure.
And it was definitely with some real top name talent, this is very interesting. So then my next thought was, well, where does Brock fit in on this? Because that's kind of the follow up to that. Or
Is he
You know,
not? Isn't he out of the WWE right now? I heard like he's like a
well,
free.
he doesn't have a contract, so he's just up in Saskatchewan. He probably doesn't even know. He's
Okay.
up in he's in Saskatchewan, you know, shooting animals and cutting down trees. He doesn't. He's a happy guy, I'm
He's
sure.
living his best life.
Yeah, exactly. We always talk about on We Watch Wrestling that he, like, behind closed doors, he's got like small, like, half reading glasses, and he's always just like he's always reading like the Financial Times or, you know, James Joyce or something, and he's just like, it's like, Rena, where are my guns? That type of thing.
Oh man.
But I mean, I'm trying to think, because it's been very, I don't know, the virus era is a strange time. So I'm drawing a blank on any specific elements. I mean, basically with Retribution, for me, I am sincerely hoping it's not talent from NXT or talent we haven't seen on the main roster before. If anything, Retribution should be.
I'm telling everybody the Nexus. I'm telling everybody the whole universe is the Nexus.
You know what, guys? I can almost like 99% say that I know who they are, but I won't say it.
Well, I mean, I've heard things, and there are certain body shapes that I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's, you know, Donovan, or, you know, she looks like Mia Yim, you know,
Yeah.
but it doesn't make sense for when you go from NXT to the main roster. On paper, you're getting promoted, right?
Right.
And what are you seeking Retribution for? I don't know. Maybe because you're upset because of the way that they book the main roster compared to NXT talent.
Yeah.
So they're already upset. But if anything, it should be people that were fired, you know. And there was like that mass firing of like 40 people at the beginning of, you know, the virus. You know, it should be, you know, your Sarah Logans and your, you know, your whoever, you know. But it's just you know, I'm like, those are people that are seeking Retribution.
That's true.
Not brand new talent. And it's just a weird thing because it's just such a Vince idea. I can just tell, like, you know, Vince was flipping channels and he's like, he saw, you know, Antifa on Fox News, and he's just like, oh God, what a bunch of heels. Perfect.
Yes.
You know, then he's like, we're gonna put people in ski masks on TV and they're gonna throw rocks, set fires.
Yes,
damn.
exactly. I agree.
You guys figure out what they want. I don't know. That's your job. You know. But there is something a little confusing to me of, like, if these people are invading and hijacking your show, ruining your show, why are they now getting contracts to wrestle in the in, you know, it should be, there should be a, I don't know, but maybe even like a Raw Underground element. Like, this is, again, it's Shane trying to take over, and we finally find out, like, he has a beef, and it's you know, I mean, they would never do this, but it would be great if they acknowledged, like, why did Triple H take my place? Why you act like Triple H is your son? I'm your son, you know, type of thing. I think that would be amazing. And because now at least we are filling in the blanks of, like, why do these people have access to the building? Why do these people now have jobs here?
Makes sense. Makes sense.
It's got to be an inside job.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Wow, that's really good pitch. You know, one for me, I think you would. I don't know if you worked with them before, but I think you would fit right in with the Iconics, because I told Fred they're like one of my favorite tag team, and they're just 100% entertainment, pure talent. There's no weak link between the two. Equally funny, and they're just great. I love them.
I know, it definitely feels like, I mean, you know, based on the TV, that Peyton's getting, you know, the Rocket, and I don't know if they have anything for Billy Kay, but I'm like, Billy is, I think she's the funniest. She might be the best promo in the business because she's just so funny. And she just seems effortlessly funny. And it's such a shame that it seemed like it would always be on .com. It would never be on the main show.
Yeah.
But like you can go on YouTube and find just like best of the iconics, and it's just, they are a laugh riot, and Billy in particular. But now that they are split up, if they stay split up, I really hope that Billy becomes a mouthpiece for somebody at least. Like she should be, like her and Selena Vega should get into a program where like I've got my guys, you've got your guys type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, it's also, she's so good, Billy, because as a heel, you want to see it's perfect. It's perfect. It's such a perfect place for her to be, because if she was a manager, but of course you can't have a manager because Vince doesn't like managers. It's got to be an advocate or a life coach or a whatever, it's perfect for her because she's at her best when there's steam coming out of her ears, and like they I don't know what, they never, unless I missed it, they should be selling "You Gotta Be Joking Me" t-shirts, with just like her in rage. That's what I want to see. So I'm like, it would never hurt her for her guys or girls, whoever her wrestlers to be losing, because now I'm thoroughly entertained watching her like stomp and jump up and down and just I really hope beyond hope that they do that with her, or at least give her something to do, but
Same.
You never know.
Matt, did we talk about the hiring process for you to get into WWE? I don't think we touched upon that, did we?
No, I think we blew past it. I mean, it was very much, they were open to hearing from comedy writers, people with TV writing experience. Whatever the application process was, I submitted, to HR. They got in touch with me. I had to get, I had trouble getting a transcript from my school, from Fordham University, because they said that I owed money for a dorm room I lived in had extra furniture in it.
Oh,
and so somehow I had to pay money because of extra furniture. And I was like, what? I'm like, I'm not, no, you already got $100,000 20 years ago. You're not getting a dime more. So I actually took a picture of my diploma and sent it to WWE HR, and they were like, all right, that's good enough. I got a letter. Actually, I got a letter. I was like, all right, you don't have to send me the transcript. Just send me a letter that says, yeah, he went here. Can you do that for me?
Wow.
I'm sorry a custodian had to move a chair, but I'm not whatever. But the interview, interview, gosh, basically the process between when I first contacted them about the job to when I got the job was 3 months. So there was a lot of time of thinking, I guess it's not happening. And the guy from HR might have even have said, they take a long time to pull the trigger on things. I don't know exactly how much time there was between my interview and my getting hired. But I was invited to Titan Tower. I had an interview with Brian Gewirtz and Dave Kapoor.
Wait.
Mm-hmm.
And also Dave Kapoor, Arnold, is Kali's manager, just so you know.
I remember him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, Dave's the best. Dave's still there.
Mm-hmm.
I love Dave. And I had to come prepared with, I think they were like, take anything that's on TV right now storyline that's ongoing, take it to what you think is the logical conclusion, you know, grid out a couple weeks of TV, whatever pay-per-views it would go to, you know, the ins and outs, the whys, and write up one backstage segment and one in-ring promo, and bring that to us. And so this would have been in fall 2011, and I think Sheamus and Christian were at least doing a TV program, and maybe that week at TV, maybe Sheamus and Christian were going to team up. Maybe they were, whatever it was. The interaction they had backstage was Christian brought Sheamus a peace offering. He brought him a potato, and he's like, you know, I know you're Irish, and, you know, I just want to give you a potato. So that was my jumping off point, where it became like, that was like the heart of this feud. And I don't know that their interactions went, I should go back and watch. I don't know that their interactions went very much beyond that night. It might have just been something so that, you know, they could get into a match or something on Raw, and it wasn't cold. That was always Vince's thing. It's like, oh God, it's a cold match. Why are these guys fighting? You know?
Yeah.
And so I definitely had an element where either Sheamus did it to Christian or vice versa, but it's somebody like went to their locker and like would open up their locker, and the whole thing is full of potatoes, and it just like they're all come pouring out, you know, type of thing. And I forget what some of the other elements are. I should look. I have all the stuff that I wrote still sitting in my desk. But the pitch went over. You know, Dave and Brian liked it. They liked me. They thought I was very enthusiastic. Dave told me later that when they were leaving my interview, Dave was like, wow, that guy seems, you know, he's really enthusiastic and, you know, excited about it. And Brian's like, yeah, I bet we could break him with that. But yeah, you know, and we talked just about, you know, wrestling and, you know, why I liked certain things, and, you know, my approach to writing and you know, just writing wrestling, and it was great, and it went well. And then, you know, I got hired, and, you know, so I was on the home team for part of the time. I was on the road for a couple months, and then I was on the home team again. I was there for a little less than a year. And it was tough because I couldn't do any acting. I couldn't go on any auditions.
Right.
And it was funny, once in a while, like, you know, somebody would catch a rerun of like Curb Your Enthusiasm that I was on. And, you know, I was constantly getting met with, anytime somebody would see me on TV, and then they would see me, you know, like on other people's TV, and then they would see me at the arena, they'd be like, what are you doing here? Like, why are you doing this?
Yeah, because you worked on heavy projects, man. Like The Other Guys, like one of like my favorite like comedy movies of all time. Like you worked on a lot of mainstream things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was funny. There was like when I was at WWE, I shot an episode. I was on an episode of Louie. So there was, and I didn't tell anybody. There was one day I just showed up at work with a goatee, and they were like, you look like Louis C.K. And I was like, well, hopefully at some point that'll make sense. Because there was an episode of Louis where he watches security footage of himself, and it's me in the footage. And he's like, wait, that's not me. And the guys are like, no, that's you, dude. And he's like, that's what I look like? You know? I actually even did some sketches for the pilot for the Pete Holmes show while I was working there. I think I took, again, I must have taken vacation days or something. And it was like, I was petrified because also like I was flying to LA to shoot these sketches. I might have even, there was actually one thing that I shot, I was honest with them. And I was like, look, I have a prior commitment. I need to shoot this thing. It's not going to happen all the time. And I remember whoever I told it to was like, well, yeah, no, it's not going to happen all the time. You can't do this. Like, because that's Vince's mentality is like, you know, when you're here, you're here. This is what you do. I was kind of able to make it back to New York City from Stanford some nights to do stand-up, but it was rough, especially if we were there late, you know, because there were some nights we were there all night. But as far as during the day, it was near impossible. So when I was shooting stuff for the Pete Holmes pilot, I lied and said I was going to a wedding. It was something that was, you know, a family thing. It was booked, you know, before I started working there. But it also was the same week that they were going to be in LA for TV or SummerSlam or something. And it was like, I was like, I'm going to run into somebody at the airport. And sure enough, when I got on the plane, like Mark Carano was on my same flight.
Oh,
and
God.
I was like, hopefully hopefully I'm just
Oh.
new enough that he doesn't recognize me or something, or, you know, but like I went and I shot it. And even at the time, like, I remember we shot a bunch of the sketches and Pete was like, somebody was having a party. I think maybe Sarah Silverman was having a party, and I was like, I'm petrified of going because in my mind, because I think at the time, Amy Schumer and Dolph Ziggler were dating, and I was like, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to go. Amy's going to be there. Dolph's going to be there. It's going to be like, what are you doing here? Why weren't you on TV? It's going to get back to everybody. Everybody talks to everybody. It's just going to become this nightmare. So I'm like, I'm just going back to my hotel and doing nothing, you know. I was like, I was so petrified, and I never got busted, you know, but I was like so petrified that like, this is going to blow up in my face. This is going to somehow become the thing that does me in this job, you know.
Yeah, you got to cover your bases. That was smart, man, because it could possibly happen.
Right. Yeah. But so I didn't expect the WWE gig to be very long term because of, you know, just the horror stories I had heard of just what a difficult job it was. But then also just in general, I was like, you know, there are other things that I want to do. And this feels a little temporary, as great as it is. If I could do the thing, like when they approached me, you know, a couple of years later about being a consultant, they were like, you know, you can just stay in LA, do comedy, you know, do whatever you want, and we'll just send you assignments each week. I was like, this is the dream. This is the, you know, this is what I've been holding out for. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, I'm very grateful, but it's, yeah, it was such a great experience for sure. But yeah, but it was, especially being at TV, God, it was just the common thing was, if this was any other show but wrestling, there's no way I would do this. You know, I just love wrestling so much that it was like, it always outweighed the negative of it. Even being like chewed out by Vince, for me, it was still like, God, it's kind of crazy. I'm getting chewed out by Vince McMahon. Like, that never wore off.
Sure.
You know, even as frustrated as I got, even as much steam as I had that I needed to blow off later, there was still, even as much as like times like I felt like I cannot stand this guy. Like, I was still like, I was still so grateful for the opportunity to be like allowed backstage and be a part of it, you know. Like I got to, there was one time we did like a retro SmackDown, and like Gene Okerlund was there, and my big pitch, I was like, let's do a thing where we recreate Hulk Hogan and Gene tagging together. Where we do it, it's Sheamus and Gene. He's getting punished by like Laurinaitis or whatever. And so I got to like recreate like my favorite childhood memory of watching it. So it's just like, you know,
circle.
Yeah, very, very much. Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome, man. So what are your
Matt? Sorry. Oh no, Matt, did you ever get to experience headquarters, like the toy room at all? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I know. I never got to go over there.
What is it, just for talent? I thought everybody could go.
No, it was very. Oh, hold on. I knew, there's a warehouse with like the toys and stuff. I did not ever get to go over there. There was always, even like getting stuff from the studio, like requesting DVDs was a little difficult for the writers. If you had been there for a while, like if you were like Ed or Dave, you could kind of pick up the phone and be like, send over, Saturday night's main event from blah blah blah. But my experience was much more of when things were going to be thrown out, I jumped in. Like I was there when the writer's room moved from the 4th floor to like the 2nd floor. And there was a huge collection of LJN figures that were just in the writer's room that they were like, this isn't moving, grab what you want. And so like some of the more senior writers grabbed, Hogan and Piper or the Gene or the whatever. And I just sat there and I grabbed literally everything that was left. So I have like, they're all up here. Like I just have this whole collection of just random,
I love it.
Bundy and Hillbilly Jim and all of them. Same with the DVDs where it was like, we're moving, these are just going. So I'm like, I am taking them.
Awesome.
When they digitized the magazines, they were like, we're only keeping 2 hard copies of every issue, and anything else. I got there kind of late. The magazines got scooped up, but everything else, like I grabbed a bunch of old magazines. One of them, I'd have to find it. I moved the magazines up there. I'd have to find it. One of them has like, clearly someone at TV at the time like wrote down what the utilization was, what the comps were, just on the cover. Like they were on the phone with somebody and this was the magazine on their desk at that moment.
Yeah.
And they just wrote down what they did at, whatever arena that day or that week.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting element. But I even got a bunch of programs from like, just like Attitude Era, post Attitude Era,
sure.
Some random SmackDown house show programs. But yeah, I always, if I had been there a little bit longer, there was one writer's assistant who managed to get over to the warehouse, and that was kind of like talent got to go, and also like guests would, when they were getting shown around, would get to be brought there and kind of like, oh, pick out whatever you want type of thing. But
yes,
my day would have come, but I got out too soon. Yeah, I would have. It's maybe for the best I didn't make it over there. I would have made a pig of myself grabbing things.
Fred, did you want to do the 21 rapid fire questions?
Yeah, absolutely, Owner. I was just gonna before we take it home, I just wanted to hit you with 21 totally random questions. This has been a really great episode. So Matt, are you down to play?
Yeah, please.
Okay, we'll start. What's your favorite thing in your closet right now?
I have a Hannibal Buress t-shirt that I'm in the picture with Hannibal just randomly, and it's from the Emerging Comedians of New York awards. Mindy Tucker, an amazing photographer in New York, took the picture, and I noticed one day Hannibal was selling them on his website, so I have that in there. I haven't worn it. I don't know why.
Yes. When things break, do you prefer to fix it or replace it?
Gosh, I like to try to fix it, but it usually doesn't go well.
You like Tim Allen?
No.
Tim Allen, A Home Improvement.
No, I don't think I do. I don't think I do.
What job would you be absolutely horrible at?
Tim Allen's assistant.
What's your favorite movie ever?
Oh, The Blues Brothers.
What's the most disturbing thing you've ever witnessed?
God. Watching Vince McMahon eat his lunch.
Oh, him eating his steak and
Oh,
steak and veggies, right? And it's like wrapped up. It's like string beans or something, right? Did he have any carbs or no?
Oh God, no carbs, pal. Just a blood red steak. I remember at one point walking through the room, like where the writers' room was the production room stayed the writers' room. And so his lunch was still just sitting there. I remember walking by and being like, is that red velvet cake? And I was like, oh my God, this is old steak. It was that red. Yeah.
Me and Titus would always sneak. Well, Titus would always sneak. Well, I would too. We would sneak and like take his shake sometime. I'm like, Titus, what are you doing? Oh, he don't want these. He don't want these. Like the protein shakes that he would drink, or like
Sure.
or like the red. It's not the red line, but some energy drink. But yeah, we were bad.
The purple gimmick. It was like a workout supplement.
Yeah,
I remember I drank half of those once, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I was like, this is insane.
Yeah, that's why I love it. That's why I love it. But anyway, if you had the world's attention for 30 seconds, what would you say?
Oh, wow. I would recommend different Grateful Dead shows and different wrestling shows for sure. And I would be like, if you have any VHS tapes you don't want, send them to me, especially used blanks.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
Oh, God. I think when my hands feel sticky, like, like maple syrup, like I hate that sensation.
What makes you anxious?
Turning left at an intersection in Los Angeles.
Oh yes, yeah, that's perfect. That is perfect. Yeah. Okay. What's your favorite swear word?
Ah, fuck.
Yes.
It's so good. It's just the f and the k.
What's the stupidest thing you've ever done because someone dared you to?
God. Oh God. I mean, it probably involved drinking, which is probably why I can't remember.
Oh goodness. What is one food that you would never give up?
Oh my God. Oh God. Wow. Wow. Maybe peanut butter.
Oh, I love peanut butter. I love it, bro. I go through like 3 jars a week, but yeah, it's my weakness. After we're done, I have my dinner, my first and only meal, and I have like a half a jar of peanut butter.
I love it.
If you could have 3 people over, dead or alive, who would they be?
Wow. Stanley Kubrick, Jerry Garcia, and Gorgeous George.
Gorgeous George. What's the worst backhanded compliment you've ever been given?
You look like you were having a lot of fun up there.
You sound like you sound like Michael Hayes.
Well, you look like you were really enjoying yourself. Yeah.
14, is your belly button inner or outer?
Inner.
Who was your first celebrity crush?
Tracy Gold, Carol from Growing Pains.
Okay. All right. What's something that you've tried that you'll never try again?
There was a Superman roller coaster at Six Flags. I don't know if it's still there, but no way. And this was like 20 years ago. Is this still there?
Right. I'm not sure, but I remember the ride. I remember.
Ooh, not for me.
Yeah. What was your first job?
A lifeguard.
What was your favorite TV show?
My first favorite TV show
Yes.
would have been Danger Mouse.
Okay. WWE home team or away team?
Oh, away team.
You like traveling, huh?
Yeah, I mean, that was like, I learned more doing that. But when I came back to the home team and we were like trying to book TV, it was so simple. I was just like, well, then we'll do this. Well, then how about, all right, well, then we'll do a 6-man with all of them. Then we'll do, even when I was doing the Pete Holmes show, when we were trying to seg out a show, they were like, we're missing a segment. You know, I was looking at these 2 shows and I turn around and I look and I was like, make the Kristen Shaw interview 2 segs and move that over to the other show, you know, because it was purely from booking TV. It's like, all right, well, we go 2 segs with this match and then we're fine. We're filling.
Home team or away team?
Away team, because that was where I like learned so much about God, just booking the show and wrestling itself, and that's like you're really in it and you get to be around, you know, the talent and Vince and even just when I came back to the home team, you know, booking the show was so much simpler just because I had such a working knowledge of like, I mean, it was like we're laying out the format. I was like,
yes,
all right, then we do these 2 guys in the main, or all right, then we do a 6-man with this is like just put them all in there, and I actually transferred over pretty well to when I was on the Pete Holmes show, like segging out a talk show, because it was. I remember one day they were looking at the shows, and they were like, "Oh God, we're missing a segment. We need something to fill the segment." I remember turning around and just being like, "Let's make the interview with Kristen Shaw 2 segs, and then move this other thing to the next night." You know, because it was straight out of booking Raw. It was like, all right, we'll go do 2 segs with this match, and then we're fine. And then we're, you know, we got the short segment, we got the divas, we got the seg 1 promo. We're practically done.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Best gift ever received?
Wow. Wow. I think it was my 21st birthday. My brother got me, God, I have it right up there, a recording, a bootleg of the first performance of the band Oysterhead, which I had no idea that it even existed, and it didn't exist even until this performance. And it's a power trio of Stuart Copeland from The Police on drums, Trey Anastasio from Fish on guitar, and Les Claypool from Primus on bass. And I was like, my mind was completely blown, because I was like, this is like this is all my favorite bands at once. Like, how is this even possible that I'm listening to this right now? I mean, it's like, it's like my 3 favorite things are, you know, the Grateful Dead, pro wrestling, and VHS tapes. Somehow, if we can combine those into one,
it's your perfect world.
Be living my best life.
Yeah.
You know, so that for sure. My brother was always incredible at gift giving. Still is.
That's awesome. And last but not least, is your toilet paper over or under?
Over.
Over. Awesome. What's got 2 thumbs in the last man standing? Matt McCarthy, thank you for being on Pro and Bro Wrestling. This is incredible. Arnold and I were just talking earlier. You're a great episode. Definitely sitting under the learning tree for all of our guests. Thank you for being on.
And thank you so much, man.
This is super fun.
Yeah, and I always appreciate talking to a fellow lifelong wrestling fan. You know, I feel like if I talk to someone who's into wrestling, like it's like there's this automatic like friendship that happens, because you have like so much to talk about like right off the bat. So, and I feel like this podcast can go on forever, and I really had fun just chatting it up with you, man. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And honestly, thank you for everything you've done for me in my career, because it's only elevated me to what I'm doing now and made me a better performer. So thank you.
Yeah, man, that was fun. I had a great time talking to him. It's so cool, to hear someone that's been a fan and got into the business, knows the ins and outs, and still left as a fan. And that's a true fan right there. So really cool to hear his story, man.
And that's what it's all about, you know. Him and I are very similar, you know. Like I'm gone from WWE. I'm gone.
Yeah,
But look at where Mr. No Days Off is now, you
that's
know.
right.
So I mean, I still got a lot left in the tank. That's my favorite catchphrase. Um, and you know, it is what it is. This guest, Matt McCarthy, was incredible. It was great. It was a first for us to really get into the writer's room, the creative team, still being a fan of the business, him helped me create Primetime Players, him working with Bob Backlund and I. So, dynamite episode. And who's next?
Yeah, you never know. You never know, man. But before we sign off, I quickly just want to talk about this one topic that everyone's been talking about. I'm sure you heard about it too, but the whole, Vince McMahon banning his talent from third party from third party companies like Twitch and Cameo. And I like when that statement came out, obviously a lot of backlash happened from that. Other people that's not involved with WWE spoke out and said how unfair it is for WWE to treat their independent contractors as employees when they're not getting benefits. And they're saying, you can't have the best of both worlds. You can't have it all. Either, you become a full employee and give them like all the benefits that they deserve, or let them do what they need to do in their free time to take care of their own and their family. And WWE later on released another statement saying, oh, listen, what we meant by that was they can continue to have Twitch and Cameo and all these other third-party companies, but they just can't use the name, But I don't know. I just wanted to know what you thought about that.
What, they can't use their stage name?
It's their stage name, but they can use their real name. So they mentioned like, oh, AJ Styles. AJ, I think that's yeah, he still can do his. Obviously, up, up, down, down with Austin. He can still use that. But yeah, they're just saying, oh, you can't use their stage name.
Yeah, it's just very weird. I don't think, someone like Lana or whoever's using Twitch or Cameo, I don't think they're going to do anything bad. When you're under WWE's conglomerate, like if you do something bad, then you're going to, you do the crime, you do the time. So by people using their real name, it shouldn't affect the company. It should only better and get more awareness and get more eyes on the company. Someone that's not following WWE might want to start following WWE because of like their Cameo and their Twitch, So like I said, like if I'm Darren Young and I'm doing something bad on social media and I'm under WWE's umbrella, yeah, then I should, do the consequence,
Yeah.
because I'm using the name Darren Young. But most of the time, if I'm going to be using Darren Young, everything is positive. It's something with the LGBTQ community. You just got to be smart about what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't want to have an OnlyFans page and be Darren Young. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I just think it's such a bad look on WWE, man, because, WWE's already...
I was very angry.
Yeah, because they're already looked at as, this big, evil corporate company, and they're already, getting backlash about the way they're treating their employees or independent contractors before this whole thing started. And to add this on top of the fire is kind of like, oh, man, like... You're just asking for it, man. And I hold on, I have to check his name real quick.
Yeah, that one Asian congressman, right?
Yes, for him to get involved on Chris Van Vliet's podcast, talking about the rights that these WWE.
And Chris is my friend, by the way. He's not yours. You guys can have your little, pizza and stuff like that. He's my friend.
We can share him. It's fine.
Yeah. What were you saying?
But for him to speak up on this, and a lot of people will say like, oh, he's a politician. He's just trying to get eyes. But hearing that interview, he's a legitimate wrestling fan. He knows his stuff, man. And
he's tired of it.
Yeah, and it's nice to hear him say that, this is an issue that he's not going to forget about, and this is an issue that he's still going to pursue. And a lot of things that he said made sense about the whole WWE comparing themselves to Disney. How, let's say Disney owns, like, obviously the likeness of Elsa and Anna. They have to be careful with that. But the differentiation of these Disney characters and wrestlers are just so different because they're their own people, and I think people are smart enough to know the difference, and it's just for them to compare themselves to how Disney protects their character. It's a far stretch, and it's just uncalled for, man. And I hope WWE fixes this, and I hope they get blasted more for this, and people speak up more about it and see how they're gonna handle that situation.
Well, with a lot of the brand deals that I've been hitting home runs with, I still say in the subject with the emails, WWE veteran superstar Fred Rosser inquiry. So like, I'm still using superstar because, perception is everything. When you say WWE superstar veteran, not former, I'm not saying former, I'm saying a veteran, because if they ask me, oh, do you still work with WWE? Yes, I still work with WWE. Recently, I was on their internet show, The Bump, so they don't need to know, like, if I'm being physical in the ring. So I'll be carrying that name until I'm 6 feet under. You know what I mean? So yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, but yeah, I know that's the big buzz right now, and it's interesting to see where this story takes us. But besides that, man, such a fun episode. I love talking to him. I obviously love talking to you. It's a great one, and 60s in the books, man.
Yeah, 60s in the books, baby.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you guys leave a comment and give it a thumbs up. And if you're listening to us on iTunes, make sure you guys give us a 5-star review if you like what you hear, and let us know what we can do better. And until then,
we've got 3 words for you. Block the hate, baby. Well, that's 4, but yeah, whatever.
They get it. It's fine.